Hey everyone! Do you ever feel a bit of a language barrier when programming your CNC? You want to make a program faster or more efficient, but just don't know how to explain it. Well, it's time to fix that with macros. This video is gonna be short but good. To make my explanation clearer, we'll start with this tool holder, and while I'm making it, I explain what the problem actually is. If you don't have a very big or powerful machine, like me, you might struggle to remove large amounts of material, especially when dealing with complex 3D geometry and big surface height differences. In those cases, you need to remove as much material as fast as possible. Or, especially in this particular case, there is no way to program something like this in CAM. You see, almost every CAM software doesn't treat this attachment I'm making as a horizontal disc saw. Instead, it sees it as a giant end mill or a vertical saw blade. And that's not what I need. Also, maybe it's just me, but I often run into efficiency problems. Programs generated in CAM are usually not as efficient as I'd like. They end up cutting more air than stone. And it's easy to see why. Big software developers focus on covering general needs, not creating special strategies for someone like me. So I just have to deal with it. Now here is my solution. First, I cut a few slots along the stone I want to remove. To make it faster, I use macros, which are incredibly useful. With macros, you can tell the machine exactly what to do and it will execute it precisely. The sky is the limit. So, what exactly are macros? You can think of them as a sub-programs that execute a script, an ordered sequence of commands written by you. In my case, it's a cycle. In a nutshell, you're speaking to the machine in its own language. A macro still follows match 3 logic, but you can imagine it as a chat between the operator and the CNC, where you can say, please do this or that, and this time the machine will actually understand you. Almost every CNC software works with macros in one form or another. In my case, on Mach 3, writing a macro is very simple. You don't need any special software, I just use Notepad. Macros in Mach 3 are written in Visual Basic Script. And no, you don't need to be a professional programmer, but you do need to know the basics of Visual Basic Script and G-code. I only started learning programming about half a year ago, so I am still a beginner. And that's already enough to write simple macros like this. Tools like ChatGPT can help generate code, but you still have to check it. If it fails without basic knowledge, you won't know what went wrong. Also, when asking AI for code, you have to describe your task very clearly, so it understands you. Now, just a few easy steps to make your macro work on your machine. If you're working within Notepad, don't forget to rename your file from txt to m1s. That's the macro file extension for Mach 3. Then copy it, find your Mach 3 folder, inside find macros directory and your user profile folder. Mine is called Petrovich. That's it. Now you're ready to go. In Mach 3, just call the program in MDI by typing the macro name, for example M902 or M904, and it will run. My macro, M902, asks me for parameters before cutting, along which axis, depth of cut, final depth, and length of cut. I work in millimeters, but you can easily set it in any units. Since we cut in marble with the disc, I can run it much faster. It slices like a butter. No extra CAM software, no air cuts. Just align the tool, set parameters and go. Now, after cutting, the distance between my slots is 65 millimeters, exactly the depth the disc we made previously allows. Next step is switch to the spindle, but before that a quick safety note if you want to make a tool like this for yourself. Never overload the disc, it is extremely dangerous. Follow manufacturer's instructions, like RPM ratings. Don't stand in front of the disc. If it fails like a flying frisbee. I use a 2.2 kilowatt spindle capable of 24,000 RPM. But since my disc is rated for 9,000, I set that as my speed. The disc itself is just a regular marble granite cutting disc, like for an angle grinder. Mount to my holder. And now I'm running a horizontal program. This means the disc digs into material along the x-axis while stepping along the y-axis. In my case, the step along the x is 1 mm. I don't want to overload the spindle since it's already working hard. Normally I use 100-125 mm diameter disc, but this one is 180. So I run the program only making sure to remove the marble blocks that are left over in time. And I don't even call them leftovers. I actually reuse these pieces in future projects. After this phase, I move on to angled cuts. For that, I use another macros and a special spindle attachment that lets me tilt the spindle at any angle. I talked about it in a previous video, link in the description. This macro is more advanced. It calculates all the steps automatically. For example, at 45 degrees the mass is simple. 1 mm in Z equals 1 mm in X. But in my case it's about 4 degrees. So the macro does the math for me. It also makes sure the disc only cuts stone, not air. The result, a finished surface in one pass. The beauty of this method is that even with a small spindle and not so powerful stepper motors, you can still handle heavy stone cutting, because the disc does not put much force on the tool. You're not overloading the machine. Yes, it's hard on bearings, but in my case, spindle are cheap consumables. When one dies, I just replace it. But again, this method is dangerous. If you're a beginner, maybe it's not for you. If you do try it, go slowly, don't overload your spindle and increase cutting forces gradually. For me, it has been very efficient and I haven't had accidents. Yet. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments, I answer them all. And if you want, I might do another video focused on Mach 3 macros in detail. Meanwhile, thank you for watching, I'll see you soon.